I'm not sure if any syllabi in any of the colleges, the law colleges in Kerala, for that matter, anywhere in the country, really has a topic of study on Constituent Assembly debates. I think it is now time for us to bring it back. So, the policymakers, the educators, the academicians must now consider bringing back a syllabi which contains the Constituent Assembly debates also. And I'll tell you why Constituent Assembly debates are important. But for that, you should really understand what really is the Constituent Assembly. Just travel back to nearly a century ago, when none of us were born, none of us were even in contemplation. Look at the milieu of the country at that point of time. Imagine the situation of the social and economic and educational and political, the scenario at that time. And then understand how difficult it was to make a constitution. Somehow, we have now taken constitution to be for granted. None of us really know what the constitution is. We speak about the constitution on a regular basis, but we really do not understand what it means. None of us really know what the constitution can do for us, what we should do for the constitution. We speak about constitution as being something that is part of life. We take it for granted and then we leave it there. Now, 1935 or so, I may be wrong with my dates. You can possibly go through the Constituent Assembly debates and understand all this. In 1935, the great left leader, M.N. Ray, he was a radical Democrat, he was a votary of radicalist democracy. He propounded for the first time a Constituent Assembly for India so that when India attains freedom, you will have a constitution waiting. That idea was taken note of by the Indian National Congress, and as you know, it was a Congress who had the maximum impact at that point of time. So, in the 1936 or so, the Lucknow session of the Indian National Congress, which was chaired by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, nonetheless, they took the resolution to have a Constituent Assembly by rejecting the Government of India Act 1935. You see, there was a Government of India Act of 1935, which was intended to be the Constitution of India. But then, I don't have to tell you this. That Constitution or that Act, as you may call it, was something that the Britishers created for us. It was thrust upon us. So the Indian National Congress rightfully and mercifully rejected it completely and said we need a Constituent Assembly so that Indians will create a constitution for the Indians. Please understand, India was not the partitioned India. It was the whole India with Bangladesh, Pakistan, all put together. So that idea then crystallized, it moved forward and forward and forward. And in 1940 or 39, it could be 1939 or 1940, I said, I may be befuddled with the dates and the years. But I remember it as being 1940, when, see, Rajagopalachari gave a clarion call for a Constituent Assembly. That was hit by the Britishers. They understood that you cannot now stop this. So therefore, the then Viceroy, Lord Linlithgow, he acceded and said that the Council of the Governor General of India can be expanded, and a war committee or something, that is what they called it, can be incorporated so that Indians can also come in. This was called the August offer, because that offer was made in August 1940 or 1939. I think it is 1940. That August offer continued for some time. Eventually, I'm just fast forwarding it. This is not the way history went. It's not very easy to write or say everything about the intervening events. So this then finally became the Cabinet Mission Act of 1945, and for the first time it was decided that we can have elections. It was not a general election as you see today, not the adult franchise that we are now used to today, but an indirect election so that we can have all members from the provinces. And please understand what India was then. India is a far cry from what you see today. We had a lot of princely states. The diversities were extremely chaotic. We had on one side the rulers of the princely states. We had on the other side people who couldn't have a meal for even for once a day. So from there we had to bring out a collection of people who could then think about India in the future. And then prepare a constitution. So we had a provisional election in the year 1936 or so, and initially the Muslim League, they did not accept it, but they still took the elections. As was expected, the Indian National Congress got the majority seats. So about 70-75 went to the Muslim League, but then they did not cooperate with the Constituent Assembly. They said, we will not recognize this, we want a Constituent Assembly for the Muslims separately. This was resisted, and then what happened? We had communal rights. It is in the background of all this. This is not something that you can even visualize. But if you can, maybe you can see the movie Gandhi by Attenborough. You can get some shades of all this. And then in that time, look at the milieu, when India was virtually burning. The proposal to take the movement forward was still crystallized, and then it went on. Finally, in the year 1946, I think it's 9th December 1946, we had the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly with about 389 members. But the Muslim League kept away, so about 78 or something did not attend. So whatever was the balance, they had the first meeting. The rudimentary principles of our constitution group, the nascent forms, ideas were exchanged. It took some time, and then they reassembled on the 14th of August 1947. By then, the then Viceroy, Lord Mountbatten, had brought in the Independence of India Act, and the partition happened. So imagine, just before the partition, just before the Independence Day, we had huge amount of ruckus, we had violent bloodbaths, it's going on the entire country. And the Constituent Assembly reassembled on the day before we were declared independent. We got independence. The Constituent Assembly became the interim Indian government. It's called the Provisional Indian Government. And then started the process of creating the Constitution. So initially there was, basic ideas. We were trying to assimilate them into a concrete document. A lot of discussions went on, perhaps the greatest minds of the country. We created a small drafting committee with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, T.T. Krishnamachari, K.M. Munshi, Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, Govinda Iyengar, Muhammad Sadanullah, all of them, six of them. The greatest minds you could possibly get together at that time. We had a Constituent Assembly drafting committee, a Constitution drafting committee. The Constitution, the very basic Constitution was prepared by somebody called B.N. Rao. He was a very famous constitutional expert at that time. And B.N. Rao created the draft, and that was presented to the Constituent Assembly, and then started the deliberation. So the first draft of the Constituent Assembly, the Constitution, came into the Constituent Assembly by about 1948, January 1948 or so. We had a first reading, we had second reading, we had third reading. It took about 1 year for the readings to complete, and eventually the deliberation on the Constitution started. Every clause in the Constitution that you see today, of course, what you see today have undergone 105 amendments, but every clause in the original Constitution was debated. 16 days was taken only to debate Article 19, Fundamental Rights. So each clause was taken, discussed threadbare. They were trying to find out the best and the worst out of it, eliminate the worst, bring in the best. And eventually, the Constituent Assembly decided to adopt the Constitution. They prepared it on the 26th of November 49, and then, as you know, on 26th of January 1950, we became a republic. That's the Republic Day. And the significance of that day, some people ask, why is it that you waited for 2 more months? Because the Constitution was ready in November. Why didn't we adopt it in November? Why did we have to wait for another 2 months? Simple. It was in 1930 that the Quit India movement was given on that particular day. So it was a day of significance, and therefore we thought that we will wait till the 26th of January, and so that the Constitution is born. Now this is a very simple way of telling you the history. I'm just putting it as a precursor so that you can read it. It makes really great reading, and if you read the Constituent Assembly debates, you will understand the kind of intellect that has gone into it. The kind of depth that was there, which is unheard of even now. I really wonder where we have lost all that now. Please see the way the debates went on. It's a far cry from the debates that you see in the parliaments now. Every word is recorded. And imagine the Constitution is originally was a handwritten book, handwritten document. Those of you who have gone to the Parliament House, you can see the original handwritten book protected in a helium-filled chamber in the Central Hall of Parliament. If you can make it, please make it. See the Constitution. You will possibly get goosebumps. How much ever you get ready to see it, when you see that document, which is handwritten in the year 1948, 49, 50, this is a history in the making. So the entire Constituent Assembly, I told you, was about 389 members originally. But unfortunately, we had the partition, Pakistan went away. So the numbers came down to 299. We had about 12 or 15 ladies. Now, when you look at it from that angle, you might say that is not great representation. But imagine that is a time when the literacy rates for ladies was something like about 8 or 10%. So about 15 ladies in the Constituent Assembly, including Sarojini Naidu, was a great feat. And that was a time when the Congress, the Indian National Congress, had complete majority. But then we had to create a constitution that was plural. We had to create a constitution that would stand for ages. So every kind of philosopher, every kind of philosophy was brought into the Constituent Assembly. We had Hindu Mahasabha, we had the Muslim League, we had all kinds of people coming in. I said India was a complete different country in the year 1947. The constitution that you see today was a reflection of the social situation at that time. That is why when you take Articles 15 and 16, you will still find references to bathing ghats, tanks, and things like that, wells and things like that. That is because in 1947, those were important. And what were we trying to create in 1947? This is something which not many people have spoken about and not many people are aware of. See, that was a time when they were all princely states. When India became independent, there was a great chance of balkanization, which means breaking up all these provinces into separate countries or separate states. What we call the balkanization. So the first and fundamental imperative before the constitutional mandate or the Constituent Assembly was to ensure that India doesn't get balkanized, it doesn't get fragmented. We had to hold every part of India together. And the constitution had to be the greatest adhesive. It had to have that kind of power that it could tie the entire country under one rope. When I say this, it becomes very easy for you to think about it, and that's not hardly anything. Not so. We had princely states, we had princely rulers, we had feudal lordships, and to bring all of them under the same umbrella, to get them together and to keep them together was a Herculean task, and it was done admirably by the Constituent Assembly. The second thing that was in front of the Constituent Assembly was to eradicate poverty. It was humongous kind of a poverty that was seen. I don't know if you know the words of Pandit Nehru. He said, we have to now feed the people, we have to now clothe the people, and that is the greatest task in front of the Constitution. So we had to bring all these concepts in 1947 and bring them all together to get a document which will last for perpetuity. We did not create the Constitution for 10 years or 15 years. If you see the constitutional scheme, the founding fathers were very clear that we had to have a constitution that would last a lifetime. Lifetime of what? Lifetime of the country. So we are not a nation which we keep on changing our constitution. We have one founding constitution, and that still guides us. Now, what really is the constitution? You are all law students. What really is the constitution? Constitution is the highest law of the land. Not merely for India. Any constitution of any country is the highest law of the land. There is no law that is greater than the constitution. Every law has to fall in line with the constitution. This is why yesterday when I was asked to speak on judicial activism, I said in India there is no judicial activism because Article 13 of the Constitution provides that laws can be looked into by courts and set aside if it is against the Constitution. This was a concept that is unheard of in US. And as I said yesterday, I do not know if somebody heard me yesterday, I said yesterday that US had to bring in that concept to a judgment. It's called the Marbury versus Madison. Law students would possibly know it. It is only through a judgment that the US Supreme Court got the power to judicially examine the legislations. But that's not the way in India. In India, every law is under the Constitution. As a constitutional judge, if a challenge is brought to me against the constitution saying it is ultra virus, I am obligated to look into it and set it aside if it becomes so warranted. So this is the strength, and Dr. Ambedkar said Article 13 is a cornerstone of the Indian Constitution. How profound. He was absolutely right. And look at the preamble. I do not know how many of you really know the preamble. The preamble was a document that was actually created by Pandit Nehru. It is credited to Pandit Nehru. In December 1946, he presented the preamble with the basic concepts of the Constitution before the Constituent Assembly. With some changes here and there, that is exactly the preamble to the Constitution. With, of course, the only amendment to the Constitution, the preamble, being in the year 1976, bringing in the word socialist. Yesterday somebody asked me, will this not create an unbridled right? I said no, because the word socialist was always there. The concept was always there in the Constitution. In the part 4, that's the directive principles of state policy. So when the Constitution is your largest and the highest law, it's called the suprema lex, or as Professor Hart said, the gun norms for the Constitution. Everything that you do as per the Constitution. And utopian, if all of us act as per the Constitution, India would be a different country altogether. So this is the importance of the Constitution Day. In 2015, this concept of the National Constitution Day was brought in. Until then, it was called the National Law Day. Even today, it's called the National Law Day, but it is more now recognized as a National Constitution Day. And the importance of Constitution is because now we are marching on to the next century. We are already in the 21st century. And the only thing that can take us forward to the next century is our Constitution. Please read our preamble. Our preamble sets everything that a human life needs on this earth in plain hindsight. It starts by saying, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to make India into a socialist, sovereign, secular, democratic republic. What more can you ask for? Everything. Socialist, sovereign, secular, democratic republic. The power is with the people. There are no kings. We are a republic. Every one of us are emperors and kings on our own right. We rule ourselves for the people, by the people, of the people. And then, what are we trying to do? The Constitution then says, to ensure to all of us justice, social, economic, and political. What more can you ask for? Social, economic, and political. Liberty of thought expression, faith, worship. What more can you ask? And equality of status and opportunity. And to ensure to all of us fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the country. This is our preamble. A few words. Please by heart this. If you are law students, please by heart this. I had by hearted this when I was in college. I still remember it. This is what should be guiding each of us in our pursuit. This is what, as a constitutional judge, what I'm trying to do. I've done nothing exceptional. I have only gone by the Constitution. And by the way, I still am very embarrassed when you say good things about me which don't deserve to be. I have done nothing exceptional. I have just followed the Constitution. And I say this in court every day. I am only following the constitutional mandate. I am governed by the constitutional conscience. And that's all that we are doing. And that's what we are expected to do. But then the citizens are not far ahead. You are also expected to follow the Constitution. Every step of your way you are expected to follow the Constitution. But then for that, you must know what the Constitution is. I'm not saying that everybody can read every part of the Constitution. It's a very voluminous document because it contains everything that is required for this nation. But a Constitution is important when it comes to the fundamental rights and fundamental duties. Preservation of liberties. And as courts, as justices of the courts, of our superior courts, we are the sentinel qui for the liberties of people. This is all that we are doing. And if you analyze our work from that perspective, nothing unusual. What we have done is exactly what we are expected to do by the Constitution. This is what the founding fathers told us. Ensure that every tear from every eye is wiped away. Ensure that no one goes unhappy, hungry to bed every night. This is all that we are trying to do. So this is the importance of Constitution. But then when we interpret Constitution, as judges we do this every day. We get all these cases which are actually within the ambit of Article 226. I generally look for the thought behind that particular provision. in the constitutional debates. I have the entire set of constitutional, the Constituent Assembly debates in my chambers. It is easy for you because it is now available online. You just have to get a printout. It's about 500 odd pages of abridged version, but the original version was 8,000 pages, all handwritten. Please see the way the intellects were dealing with each concept. See the way Article 19 was actually discussed. I told you it took 16 days. Article 19 is the cornerstone of our life in India. 19(1)(a), right to speech and expression. Everybody knows that. 19(1)(b), if somebody can help me, I've forgotten, really. I think it is the right to assemble peacefully, without arms. You see, one thing I must tell you, Constitution is written in general terms, but it is not vague. And this is exactly why the Constitution has survived. It is in general terms, because when you say Article 19(1)(b) gives you the right to assemble peacefully without arms. That takes in every strike, every dharna, everything that we talk about. If somebody comes to me with a police protection matter and says that, look, somebody is now standing in front of my house and causing a dharna, all that we tell them is, you can do that, you have a constitutional right to do that, but don't cause trouble, don't take violence. So that is Article 19(1)(b). And then you have Article 19(1)(c) to form associations, cooperative societies and all that, through an amendment that has been brought in recently. Article 19(1)(d), you can travel anywhere in India, nobody can stop you. Of course, reasonable restrictions are always there. The next article, you can reside anywhere in India. You are not a Malayali because you stay in Kerala. You can be a Malayali, you can stay in Delhi. And then, all of you know, Article 19(1)(g), right to evocation, trade, business, etc. So these constitutional fundamental rights protect every facet of an individual citizen of this country. But there is something that we forget. There is also something called fundamental duties, Article 51, capital A. Unfortunately, this is something that we all forget. And what has now happened is that we are a nation of rights but not of duties. This is the problem. Because when you exercise your right, you have to understand that another person has the same right, and your right to exercise it stops at his nose. You cannot intrude into his space. But this is something that we forget. And as I said yesterday, Dr. Ambedkar's famous words, this is a brilliant constitution, he said. And he said, if this constitution fails, it means people are wild. If you find that there is any tendency these days that the constitutional imperatives are not being followed, it is not because the constitution is not strong. The constitution is very strong. It is because people are not following it. The authorities who are expected to man and operate it are not functioning correctly. This is all that I am doing, or any judge is doing. We make them do it. Because Article 226, the concept of mandamus, is that when somebody does not do what is expected out of them, we compel them to do it. So this is the beauty of the Constitution. I can speak on and on and on Constitution, even with the first few articles, perhaps I can speak for hours. I know that, don't worry, I'm not going to do that. I won't torture you. But this is the beauty of Constitution. Every concept you can speak. Take the Constituent Assembly debates, you will understand how much thought went into it. You might feel that a single word is, or a phrase is used. Very simple phrases are used. For example, see Article 14. Everybody talks about equality. When you say Article 14, the first thing any lawyer would come and tell me is, Milord, my Article 14 is violated. Look at the way Article 14 is drafted. It simply says, the state shall not deny to any citizen equality of law and equal protection of law. See the beauty of that phrase. That one line is enough to take care of 1 million kind of permutations. Every litigation that comes to us comes within the ambit of Article 14. It gives us the right, or it gives us the power to maneuver, the play of the joints as they call it. So this is the way the Constitution is worded. It is generalized, it is in general terms, but never vague. Look at Article 15. It says real protection comes in 15 and 16. Article 15 says that you shall not be discriminated because of your race, religion, sex, place of birth. Right? Article 16 also says the same thing, but it is with specific emphasis on employment. Article 17, all of you know, I was very happy. Professor Sajikumar gave me the compilation of the topics. One of you brilliant people spoke about Article 17 there. I saw the abstract. Article 17 is not an easy topic to talk about because you understand, even the Sabarimala verdict was hinged on Article 17. It's a concept that can have far-reaching ramifications. Untouchability. Untouchability is not something physical. Untouchability is also in your mind. When I deal with you as an untouchable in my mind, Article 17 is violated as far as I am concerned. If I understand that my constitution will not permit me to treat you as an untouchable, not physically, but in my mind, India is a different country altogether. Article 18, I saw the abstract also. It says Article 18 titles. It is never followed. You're right. We have laws and laws and laws. We have provisions and provisions and provisions. Nobody follows it. I saw all the flex boards in the way. I was wondering, you have delivered judgments. What is the point? This is the problem. This is the problem. Where you deliberately decide to flout. You deliberately decide that I will not follow. As your dean said, God help this country. Who else can? So we require a resurgence of the constitutional imperatives. We have to understand that every one of us have to live and die within the constitutional parameters. You cannot travel beyond the constitution. Everything that you do will have to be guided by the constitution. For which I hope, this is a clarion call that I am making through the academicians of the Kerala University, the premier university in Kerala. Bring this as a syllabus right from the first standard. Let the children know what constitution is the moment they start education. It is not very difficult. I'm not saying that you should teach the constitution when the children are very young. Give them an idea of what is constitution. This is what is done in Singapore. I don't know if when Singapore became independent, its president was asked, you are such a small country. How will you survive? You have no armies. You have no navy. You have no large vessels, planes or anything. The answer of the president was very, very profound. He said, but we have discipline. And that is why you see Singapore as one of the foremost countries of this world. India has the manpower. We have the largest set of people in the world, 140 crores and counting. We have everything going. We have natural resources. We have the intellect. It is our engineers, our doctors, our lawyers, our everything who are now controlling the world. The biggest industries of the country are controlled by Indians. Why can't we do that to ourselves? Is it not time for us to ask? Why can't Kerala be the best country, best state in the world? Do we not have everything going for us? That can happen only if you understand what is constitution. For that, you will certainly have to understand the constitutional debates that went in. It's not very easy, I know that. We may have to train our next generation to do this. We are all trying to make a small inroad into that. And if our next generation understands the importance of constitution, how difficult it is to live without a constitution of the kind that we have in a country as diverse as India, we will be a completely different nation. See, our Constituent Assembly, just coming back to the Constituent Assembly, took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. Just imagine the kind of effort that was taken. 166 days to create this document. And by far, the most eminent people who have walked the nation. All the best brains. See the Constituent Assembly debates, you will understand why I am saying this. Look at the kind of inputs they were given. I told you there were about 15 ladies, out of which about 10 or 12 spoke on a regular basis. One of them, I believe her name is Durgama or something, I'm not sure of that. She was the most vocal. And because of her inputs, we have a lot of provisions with respect to women and children in the Constitution. So this is the kind of impact that you can create. All of you can now work the Constitution. Please don't be under the impression that the Constitution has to be worked by others. The Constitution is not to be worked by the judges or by the executive or even by the Parliament. The Constitution has to be worked by the people. We the people, we have to put our foot down. We are entitled to certain things guaranteed by the Constitution. The day we rise up and say, look, this is what I am entitled to. This is my right as a free citizen of this country. Nobody will dare violate it. The problem is we do not understand our rights, we do not understand our duties. An ordinary citizen knows neither. People in power knows only rights, not the duties. And this is where the problem is now started. All the controversies that you see in your newspapers or in your social media or whatever is all because we don't really work the Constitution. We have to work the Constitution. It's now already too late. India is 75 years young. It's now time for us. The honeymoon period is over. We cannot say that, look, we are a new country, we are still working it. No, 75 years is good enough. It is now for us to work it, to make it brilliant. And that can happen only if each of you understand what the Constitution is. And I must really commend and credit today's program. This is brilliant actually. And the reason why I have come today, traveling all this distance, I was told not to drive for obvious reasons. I still took the flight. I am thankful to the organizers for having taken the burden of bringing me here like this. I took the opportunity because I wanted to speak about the Constituent Assembly, the debates, because this is not an opportunity that I've got before. Everybody have asked me to talk about the Constitution. I said, like yesterday, there would be one topic from the Constitution asking me to speak, but nobody has ever asked me. And I have not seen any program where the Constituent Assembly debates were taken note of. That's a brilliant initiative. And I'm sure if you really read the debates, which I hope you will, forget about today. You can take your time. Tomorrow is a Sunday. Take a few more Sundays. Read it. Read it like a novel or a storybook. It's that interesting. Believe me, when I say this, you might feel that I am exaggerating. I am not. Please read the debates and then read the Constitution. Constitution, perhaps, for a non-lawyer, it would be slightly dry. But then, you are expected to know it. This is your country, this is your Constitution, this is your largest, this is your highest law. How can you live in a country without knowing the law there? The first thing that you learn in a country is the law. And the first law that you learn in India is the Constitution. It's a suprema lex. There is no law beyond that. And this is exactly what we constitutional judges are doing. I'm sure there will be more judges to come from this August gathering. I can see a lot of ladies. We're looking for good women, good lady lawyers, judges. Now it is on your shoulders to run this Constitution. I think this generation has become indurated. We will not, I don't think we will learn. We will do what we are accustomed to do. It is the next generation who will have to understand the importance of now changing. We have done nothing extraordinary. We have only done what the Constitution has asked us to do. And we hope that we will continue to do so. And as I said yesterday also, I'm a die-hard optimist. I'm sure that India will be the greatest country in the nation in the few years to come. But then that ideal can happen only if you understand what the constitutional imperatives are and how important it is to run each of those clauses by every one of us. Don't buckle when somebody abuses you or treats you in a manner which is not constitutionally permissible. You have your rights. Work it. Don't run. Don't cry. You have the power with you. Every one of you have the power with you. Each of you are important. Each of us are important. We are constituents of a great nation. You don't have to go complaining. You should recognize the rights, but temper it with your duties. Do your duties and exercise your rights. If you do that, you don't require an external agency. We are still very powerful. Every one of us can be powerful. I don't want to take specifics. There are some observations I made in the last maybe a month or so. All this was done in the context of this. Because we see a lot of litigation coming, where people say that, look, I'm being treated like this, I'm being denied this. The problem is you don't know what you are entitled to as a citizen. Of course, there are mechanisms, you have courts, you have other forums for you to work the rights and duties. But unless you are aware of it, every child should be aware. So that if somebody abuses you, you must be able to stand up and say, you have no right to do that. Under the largest constitution of the country, the world, our constitution, I am expected to be treated with the preamble imperatives. Equality of status and opportunity. This is why Article 18 was brought in. There is no difference in the status. Even if I get a Padma Shri, I am not expected to flaunt it and say I am Padma Shri so and so. But that is forgotten. What are we trying to do? We get this award and then flaunt it. At least in the last few years, there has been a change. We are really finding out the gems in the society and then honoring them. They are not people who work for the grandeur of a title. So this is the problem. We don't understand the title. We don't understand the Constitution. So I hope that you will take this as a clarion call. I'm sure you're all research scholars. No, students, you are the next research scholars to come. Of course, yes. Academicians, judges, lawyers, researchers are there. Take it as a policy before the government. Let the constitution be brought in as a syllabus in the school itself. Bring it in tempered fashion, slow and steady. Let every child know what they are expected to do in life. Not merely the rights, but the duties also. I'll stop by reminding you that there is one particular provision in the Constitution which comes under Part 4, which is Part 5, which is the fundamental, Part 4A, sorry, the fundamental duties. Article 51, capital AJ. 51, capital AJ. It imposes an obligation on every citizen to excel and to be excellent. This is not an option now. This is an obligation. I said this yesterday also. So when you understand that the nation imposes on you an obligation to be excellent, excel in whatever little you do, whatever big you may do. Not everybody can become the President of India. And bigness or smallness doesn't go with the position that you adorn. It has got nothing to do with the position. You are never defined by the position that you hold. You are defined by the way in which you handle wherever you are. Be the best in whatever you are. You are a lawyer, you be the best lawyer. Doctor, be the best. You are a cockroach plucker, be the best. You have an obligation to be excellent. Because if every individual of this nation is excellent, then what happens? The country is excellent. Simple. Oversimplified, but then this has to happen. So you have a constitutional obligation. It's a fundamental duty under 51 capital J. Please keep that in mind. And thank you for enduring me so long. I hope I have not taken too much of time. I have seen some people dozing off, but then I've made sure with my large voice, I don't know if it's been carried, I at least shock you to wake up and listen to a few words that I've said. Thank you so much, and it's been a great opportunity. Subject. Please read it. Please read it. You will be shocked to see that it makes more interesting reading than many of your social media posts that you see these days. Thank you so very much, and all the best to everyone.